Descent Legends of the Dark is up for pre-order. And the question, being a Descent first edition, second edition, and now, okay, I know it's not third edition, but it really is third edition enthusiast, is this an auto buy? You know, the eternal board gaming question, what place will this title have in my collection? Will it be a title that we regularly play that we can enjoy? Or will it sit there and taunt me, never really working its way into the circulation? That's what we're going to explore. So for $140 USD, that's retail, so about $140. It's up at Miniature Market right now, $139.99. Is this a buy-in? And I have to kind of ask the question for right now, and this is something that's a little bit different, because if you've been following my channel for a while, not only do I love Descent, it works against me. I am a completionist. So I'm interested to see how the evolution of a game would move out. And often, if there's a newer edition, if I enjoyed the previous editions, then for me, really, it is an auto buy. It is an automatic move in. I mean, Runebound 2nd edition, loved it. Runebound 3rd edition, it was easy. Looking at Pathfinder the Adventure card game, going from 1st to 2nd edition. But this time, with Descent, I'm kind of on the fence. And a lot of that certainly is because I have a lot of titles in my collection to keep me occupied. But if you're into the board gaming hobby, that certainly is not going to stop you in any way. But there's too many what ifs with the direction that this game is looking to take right now. And it's those what ifs that have me on the fence. Where does it fall for you? So the first thing that hits me right away is the fact that you need an app to play the game. I am all for innovation. I am all for pushing ideas moving forward. Some work out successfully, some not so successfully. And sometimes it's a matter of opinion. Looking at Runebound 2nd edition, dice were involved. Good old D10s for resolving combat and skill checks. When Fantasy Flight moved to 3rd edition, there was this idea of these runic pogs, this idea of casting tokens, cardboard tokens. Okay, it's pretty radical. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it. I personally liked it, but I applaud the innovation. The innovation with an app, that integration, it really doesn't do it for me that much, simply because I want to unplug, and maybe this is a little bit old school. Maybe this is because I spend a lot of time virtual and online, but the idea of board gaming analog, I want to unplug. I want to pull away from it. I want to have that old school. Now, certainly it has that old school feel. Miniatures, a lot of cardboard, a lot of tokens. I mean, it's a big box, but you need the app 100%. And I'm not even going to also really address, because this is a minor subset, I want to play my games forever. If I'm limited to an app, that cycle eventually is going to drop. When Fantasy Flight drops their other games, like currently Descent 3rd edition is over. Terranoth is dead. It's dropped. The game is over. But I can still play it because it's an analog as opposed to a digital. So I wonder about these hybrid games and the way that they work from that perspective. Is this the way of the future? Is this the way that things are going? It's hard to say. It's hard to know. Certainly Fantasy Flight is pushing hard in that direction. What I would be for is, if we back it up to Descent 2nd edition, you had 3 ways to play the game. You had Core, which was an overlord system, one versus many. Players control the heroes. One player controls the monsters and runs the quest. Then you had the add-on where you could play with the automated cards and the dungeon worked itself. And then you did have the app. And for that, I utilized the app. There were many times I played the app, so I'm not anti-app. But with that, I could at least play it and always fall back on the core, fall back on the analog. I don't want to be chained to it. I also think and wonder the stream of buy-in. Now, the Lord of the Rings game, that has an app, and I have had the chance to play it. I don't own the title, and that kind of works out simply because a friend of mine is massive Lord of the Rings fanatic. It's enough that we both play the living card game, and I'm putting my resources into that. But I've enjoyed the app-based board game. It works, but a lot of that buy-in was not, at least from my limited perspective of my friends and gaming circle, it wasn't so much, wow, look, it's an app-based game. It was more like, it's Lord of the Rings, and I buy everything that is Lord of the Rings, because that's my thing. That's what I'm into. App was secondary. So I wonder if in this genre, in this massive pushing out of dungeon crawler board games, if they're looking for a Gloomhaven killer, is the app going to do it? Or is Fantasy Flight saying, look, we're going to shift and the app is going to be the way to go? I also kind of wonder about the distribution model, because in the past with the life cycle, the way that they would make it and the way that they would utilize it would be you'd buy the core and then they feed you a steady diet of small boxes and big box upgrades to get you more. Sell you some lieutenant packs, sell you some hero packs. And that revenue stream was, at least I'm giving you money and I'm getting something physical in return. What I wonder is now, are you going to go to this DLC? Isn't this going to be really an illusion where we're going to have an app and it's going to be the board game, it's going to be the core, but we're just going to then trickle out app-based upgrades that you have to pay for? And yes, there is research and design and programming and people hours that go into making that. But once that's made, you just replicate. It's a bigger income stream. It's a bigger model to make money. I wonder if they're going in that direction. The other thing that I wonder about, and we have to see more as things get released, we're always pushing the price point. Now, $140, is that a lot of money? I think we have to look at the community overall. I remember when Descent First Edition came out, it was the first game to hit $100. So this was what, 2008? So adjusted for inflation, USD, that's what, 150, 160, 170. I mean, someone will do the calculation there in the comments. In exploring that, I remember at the time it was like $100 for a board game? That's crazy. And Fantasy Flight was like, it's the first of these coffin box games, and look at all the stuff that you get in it. You got a lot of stuff. If I look at the cut down, you're not getting as much stuff. I mean, content is good there. You're not getting as much stuff for the price. But we can also counter that and say people have become accustomed to, thanks to the Kickstarter kind of push of, core 150, 200, 300, 400, 500, buying in to some of these board gaming systems that are extremely expensive. And I'm not passing judgment on value, because that's based on the plays and whether you enjoy it. But we're seeing this push of the first jump was 100 for a core box. Core. Now 150. We'll see 200, and it pushes up and up. So I wonder about that model. In terms of artwork, okay, you know what? I am putting that aside. The artwork personally doesn't really appeal to me. I mean, artwork is important because it's a narrative, it's a visual game, it's trying to pull you in. One could also say the type of sculpts and the miniatures. Does that look good and does that push you in? But I realize that that is entirely subjective. I appreciate the artwork of the previous incarnations of Terranoth, looking at Descent first and second, looking at Runebound second and third, looking at some of those other games. It had its version of Fantasy Flight's version of a fantasy type universe. I liked it. This is like, I don't know, we're trying to be edgelord, or we're trying to be like grim, dark, gothic, but not really scary. We're trying to be like, we're like KDM, Kingdom Death Monsters, Survivors, but not really. I wonder, it's like, let's just change the artwork and see what happens. So I kind of don't know what to make on that. Doesn't really do it for me, but I would say that's not necessarily a make or break. As for all the cardboard and the terrain and the overlays, okay, I think that's an interesting innovation. We'll see how it holds up. We'll see how it works out. It's kind of neat. I applaud them for taking a risk or looking at trying out something different. You know, same way again with second to third edition Runebound, making the jump from dice to pogs. Some people will like it. Some people will not like it. I would say on the side of, I kind of like it. It looks kind of interesting. But again, we'll see how it actually holds up. The first of 3 planned installments. That's the big question. is this going to be installment 1 with a couple of little boxes and little extra pack-ins, hero packs? Then the second installment, then the third installment. It could be something very big. I see them taking a play from Gloomy, where you have Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, the continuation, kind of, interchangeability, things being familiar with that. Is that where Fantasy Flight is looking to go, where they're saying, look, we're killing off all the other Terranoth stuff, all the other small stuff, and we're going to focus on this kind of Gloomhaven killer, and we're going to make everything super cross-compatible, backwards compatible, like pulling out that old Xbox game and firing it up. So in the case of Ultimate Longevity, I think it could be around for a while. But again, for me, right now, and then I'm curious to see where you guys are in the comments, it's wait and see. It's wait and see. And normally I would be all over this because, again, I love Descent, and I'm a fanboy, and I love Terranoth, and I like some of the innovations, but that app piece just really kind of hits me. I just wish there was a native mode or a non-app mode, even if it was, I won't say crippled, but not fully implemented. I don't know if the fact that it's not a main title or the fact that it's not Lord of the Rings, if that will hurt it based on being an app.